like to open the regular session of the Berlin Mayor and Council for Monday, August 10th, 2020, and it has been our tradition for many, many years. I'd like to start off the meeting with the recitation of the Lord's Prayer. Would you please do so?
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Please join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first item on the regular session agenda is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting on July 27th.
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the regular session minutes as prepared by Councilmember Boyes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Passes, I let the record show it passes unanimously. Number 2 on the agenda. 2A is motion 2020-20, a motion approving an application to the Community Parks and Playgrounds Program for the fiscal 22 budget for permanent restrooms in Stephen Decatur Park in the amount of $110,000. So this is the same application.
This is what we discussed at the last meeting. This is just for the purpose of you approving the, primarily the matching funds, which is 10% of the total project. These would be FY22 funds, so they will not affect this year's budget.
And so the amount that the council would be committing to is $11,000 of town money?
Yes, of town money, and that could be cash and income.
Okay. And that is assuming that the grant, that we get the grant.
Correct.
Okay, does everyone understand the motion and what's up here?
If there are no questions, I'd like to move to approve this request.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Burrell to approve the motion 2020-20. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
The motion passed unanimously. Next is item 2B. This is a motion approving Mary, is it Bella?
The representative here tonight, Mayor, is a young lady by the name of Dawn Hodge.
Dawn?
Hodge.
Okay. To host a special event in the town of Berlin for the American Cancer Society called Relay for Life of Northern Worcester Luminera on October 3rd.
Yes.
So, Dawn?
Okay.
Before you start, Dawn,
Okay.
in the packet, if you go, you'll find the request, the application, I should say, for the event, the special event application.
Okay, thank you. So I think a lot of you are already familiar with this event. It's normally held at Relay for Life on Mother's Day weekend, Friday in May. And because of COVID, we rescheduled it to September. And now with everything still going on, we've decided just for everyone's safety to do more of a drive-through luminaria ceremony. And we thought there would be no better place to do it than Main Street in Berlin. It will bring safety to survivors that want to come, but also it will bring other people into town that will see your shops. I think hopefully some of them will stay open that night. I know I've spoken with, of course, Donna at Sisters and the Bruder Home Girls and lots of other friends that have shops in town. That will hopefully bring them some walk-through traffic of people looking at the luminaria and the signs in the windows. But also will definitely bring them return, like most people that Relay in this community, make sure that they give business back to people that support Relay for Life. So I know we'll bring business back to you also. We're looking to just do from, I got my street names, thanks to my DJ Thompson, I had to bring my map guide with me. From West Street to Jefferson Street, you would like to line both sides of the street with luminaria bags. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically like a a white lunch bag, but we would have, like I would have in memory of my dad on it, because he passed away from cancer in 1998. And then other people would have in honor of or in memory of their friends and family. And that's something that we do to fundraise and put them all through town. And then each store will have different signs for their windows and things if they choose to join in with us and do. And there'd be no charge, of course, to the stores. It would be something we'd like to do for them to help us promote it also.
How many bags are you estimating?
We are estimating, let's see, I mean, there should definitely be enough to line all the way down that street section. We usually have, like 600 bags, I think, at Relay for Life. If you're familiar with Everett Relay, there's a large, how long do you think that track is? We go all the way around that track.
Quarter of a mile?
Yes, like a quarter of a mile track that we line both sides of.
So folks would be able to come to town and walk the streets?
They could
or-
walk,
Or drive?
and there's so many people, like a lot of survivors that choose not to get out and mingle. They'll be able to drive through and still see the bags in their honor. But if you, like DJ and I would be out walking around that night, but that's what you choose to do, so.
And people can walk and check out the different luminaries and who they're
Yes.
in honor of. And they also have the opportunity then to visit the stores in whatever way they
Yes,
honor
exactly.
300 people.
Yeah.
Ma'am, are you putting real votives inside these bags?
Well, that's what we normally do, so I don't know, we could do just a little, we do also have little twist lights. I don't know if Mary, she did the application with Ivy's help, so I'm not sure which she put, but we would do whichever you say. I think probably the twist little lights would be the safest thing to do.
I'm thinking. And Jeffrey, are you thinking of making it just one way for these 2 hours?
I will check with the chief to see if we can do it, yes.
I think it'd be a better idea, because if you're looking and you've got that tendency to turn, but you're staring at the sidewalk.
And you come from Main Street or the side streets as well? And
Just where the votives are going to be here on Main Street, according to my map.
Is there from Jefferson to west on
Yeah.
Main Street?
So what are we, groups of people?
There could be groups of people walking around, yes, but the whole point is for them to drive through so that they are safe and in their car. But then there will be people like myself that I already work in a restaurant every day, so I just throw on my mask and go and pray and go.
I think it's a great idea.
And what we're going to be doing also, I forgot to tell you this part, along with Ocean 98 Radio, we're doing a raffle right now, and then I'm working with them to hopefully have this broadcast live that night, to do some live reads or at least some things from the downtown Berlin. I know already there will be a couple of people, the DJs from there that obviously will be in town with us that night.
Does anyone have any additional questions for Dawn? Does anyone wish to make a motion?
I make a motion that we approve this activity.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Brittingham to approve the American Cancer Society Relay for Life in Berlin on October 3rd, 2020, from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Well, very good luck, and thank you very much for your
Thank you very
presentation
much.
and explaining everything.
We'll see you then, thank you.
You're
Well,
welcome.
we'll see you before then. Thank you.
Okay, we're now on our third item on the agenda, and first of two public hearings for resolutions. The first is Resolution 2020-05. It's the rezoning of Worcester County Tax Map number 25, parcel 411, consisting of approximately 3.2 acres from B1 Town Center District to B2 Shopping District. This is a change of zoning from B1 Town Center District to B2 Shopping District. And this is commonly known as the Harley-Davidson property on US. Joe, are you going to be making a presentation?
Yes, thank you. Mayor, members of the council, I'm Joseph Moore, 319 South Main Street, and I am representing the Two Farms, Inc., which of course trades as Royal Farms. We're here this evening, the Harley-Davidson property, and I want to apologize. I have gotten my signals mixed up. When I was at the Planning Commission, the Planning Commission utilized the projected screen. When I filed the application, I am advised that you all do not have the exhibits that I filed with the application. So I apologize for that, so I'll refer to them. Mr. Engelhardt does have them all, so they will be available for you. The ones that you have are the comprehensive plan excerpts and the population notations, which I'm also obligated to provide. I did not have those in the packet, so I had presumed too much. I had thought that you would have them, but I will refer to the exhibits and hopefully they'll be understandable. And Mr. Gaskell, because my argument is a mistake in zoning, it really is a legal argument. If you feel that I should be sworn in, I'll offer myself, otherwise.
I don't need to do that,
Okay.
because I'd ask you a lot of questions that have nothing to do with this.
I'm sure you could not resist. So we are talking about the Harley-Davidson property, which is on the east side of Seahawk Road and the south side of Route 50. And it is presently in the city limits, and it is zoned B1. Now, ironically, the B1 zone is classified in your zoning district ordinance as the downtown business district. And of course, we are about a mile from downtown, but the reason that we were zoned B1 is because we got annexed at the same time as the Stephen Decatur High School property, and it was annexed B1 because that's all they needed. But ironically, in my application, I have set forth what I believe is the mistake, and that is, at that time, the annexation occurred, it was owned by Bruce Rogers, who owned Sherwood Ford. And Mr. Rogers stated to the mayor and council that it was his intention to move at least part of his car facility, which was then down where Johnny Derrickson now has his beer, wine, and liquor store. He was going to move, Mr. Rogers was going to move his automobile facility to this location. The town annexed it, and then Mr. Rogers, not too long afterwards, for whatever reason, sold the property. So he did not, yes?
Mr. Chair, we're talking almost ancient history here. This was what, the 90s?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Just, I think that says a lot.
Well,
I understand.
that's true.
I mean, we're talking about the last century, and all these were the reasons why it was a smart move at the time, but...
And the mistake is that the two uses after it was constructed, of course, as a supermarket, have been a proposed automobile sales facility and then the actual Harley-Davidson use. Neither of those uses are allowed under the Berlin Code in the B1 downtown district. They are each denoted in your B2 commercial district as being a permitted use. So the intent of the use of the property when it was zoned could not have reasonably been utilized for that. So we are seeking to correct that mistake. Now, the circumstances with regard to the findings of fact are also before you. The findings of fact were made by the Planning Commission, who voted unanimously to recommend the rezoning tonight. And one of the obligations that I have is to show that the proposed zoning is compatible with the surrounding areas. In the packet which I filed as exhibits to my application are the Berlin zoning district maps and the county zoning district maps. All of your rezoning properties going out 346 all the way to your annexed property for 2 farms in both instances, one on the north side of Route 50 and one just adjacent to this property, are Zone B2 in the town. All of the property in the county adjacent to and contiguous to this property is Zone C2, which in the county is the comparable zoning to B2 in the town. So we believe very sincerely that it is overwhelmingly a fact that it was a mistake in zoning. Now, you have in your packet the excerpts from the comprehensive plan, and I have numbered the pages. And I'm not going to bore you, really, with all of the notations that I've made. I have highlighted those, particularly on page 2, which of course includes one of the purposes of the rezoning, and that is to promote business and job opportunities in the Maryland Route 346 corridor. We are about an 1/8 of a mile from the Route 346 corridor and a reasonable extension thereof. On page 3, it relates to your commercial uses and a diverse use of commercial uses. And this says that mainly downtown, which you all know, but for the record, have been the more moderate commercial uses. Antique shops, restaurants, all kinds of shops, to the extent that I cannot resist putting in the record that Berlin has yet again been voted the best small town for shopping in the United States, and that's predominantly downtown. In page 4, new growth has occurred in the commercial and industrial sectors. Atlantic General Hospital, of course, has been an important part of the town, and development along Old Ocean City Boulevard, Route 346, has now extended into the area of Route 50. On page 5, we note that we are already in growth area number 1, which is the area adjacent to the eastern boundary of Berlin. And the important thing, when we look at the purpose on page 6 of land use and zoning, and this is kind of the basis of where we are, it says it is appropriate to separate the commercial uses allowed along US Route 346, and we're an extension of that corridor, from those uses allowed downtown. So it is not even in the comprehensive plan that we should be zoned the same as downtown. The last 2 pages, 7 and 8, are with regard to my obligation to present you evidence in a rezoning of the population growth. And you see that, as you know, in the 2010 census, there were 4,485 persons. And then on page 8, there is that notation down in the right-hand side that it is estimated in 2019, there are now 4,866, which is a growth in population of 8.5%. The appropriate uses along the Route 50 corridor in order to comport with the county zoning and to, very importantly, comport with your determination on previous rezonings into the town are all B2 uses. So we respectfully submit that the findings of fact of the Planning Commission should be adopted by the mayor and council, and you all determine that there's a mistake in zoning. And for the record, Mr. Gaskell, because I am alleging mistake rather than change in the neighborhood, I'm not obligated to describe the neighborhood, although I think I've done so anyway.
That's correct.
And that's our presentation, Mayor.
Does anyone, thank you, does anyone have any questions or comments regarding Joe's
Can I get a copy of the site plan or the zoning map, the parcel you're talking about? I mean, I know where it is, but I just love to see on.
I can, the map.
Yeah. What's this?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because it's 0.73 acres, I'm looking at it on here, that's what we Okay.
We are right at the
Yeah,
corner. And I have also blown it up for
That's what I thought.
Right, this is, just if I
Can I
can.
see that, Joe?
Sure.
May I? Yeah, this is our property, which I've highlighted, and I apologize for not, I thought that I was.
That's okay. Don't even apologize. Just let everybody see what you got.
And this is your previous zone property, so this is already in the count as B2, and this is B1. Stephen Caters.
This is as he gave the planning commission, right?
This is our property. You rezoned this as B2 when you annexed it, and Stephen Decatur is over here. This is Seahawk Road. This is Route 50. And this is a Harley Davidson building. And this is us, Stephen Decatur here. Your other annexation, rezoned B2. And then across the street, or well, across Route 50, you also zoned our other property B2. And there. Harley Davidson. And for the record, Mayor and Council, I also have provided in the packet as an exhibit the actual meets and bounds of the annexed area so that it can comport, not annexed area to be rezoned, it's already in. But you have a meets and bounds description of the zoned property.
Okay. Anyone have any other questions for Joe?
This is a public hearing, so maybe we should check.
Yeah, I haven't opened it yet because you haven't opened the public hearing, so
Okay,
whenever.
well now, we'll now officially open the public hearing on this resolution to change that 3.2 acres from a B1 zoning designation to a B2 zoning designation.
And I do not believe any questions were submitted before the meeting. Give them a second on here.
Sure.
The completion of the census.
It's soon coming.
Where's the music coming from?
The hotel.
The question? Okay. All right, does anyone wish to make a motion regarding this?
Motion to approve.
And could you add to that, your motion includes adopting the findings of fact as made by the planning commission at its hearing?
Just what he said.
Okay. All right. Basically.
All the legalese.
Okay. All right. We have a motion by Councilmember Boyes to approve the zoning change from B1 to B2 for this particular property, which has historically been known as the Harley Davidson property in more recent years. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so motion, let the record show that the motion passed unanimously.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe.
Do you wish to close the hearing?
Yes. And now, the hearing's now closed. Thank you.
Yeah.
God will get worse the older you get.
I'm doing well, thank you.
Okay, everyone's squared away?
Okay. We are now going to be receiving information regarding Resolution 2020-06. This is rezoning of Worcester County Tax Map number 300, parcel 1232, consisting of approximately 7/10 of an acre from its current designation of M1 Light Industrial District to B2 Shopping District. And for everybody here and also that's listening to the meeting, this is the property long owned by Doug and Suzanne Parks at 115 Broad Street, commonly known as the old Southern States building. And that is what we're discussing, that building and immediately adjacent property. And you're just, again, introduce yourself and go for that. Yes.
For the record, Mark Spencer Cropper, 6200 Coastal Highway, Suite 200, Ocean City, Maryland, and I represent the Deals, who are the contract purchasers for that 115 Broad Street property.
Stated and more informal here, so it's stated.
Mr. Davis Bonnie.
Bonnie.
Bonnie, thank you. And everybody gets on a first name basis, then. David and Bonnie, thank you.
And everybody's familiar with the property. It's been a Southern States business for more years than I can remember. And as you can see on the zoning map for the town of Berlin, all the properties along the the railroad track have been zoned industrial for many, many years. And even during the 2010 comprehensive rezoning of the town, that zoning classification was not changed. So those properties along the railroad track have remained industrially zoned. And as I'm going to have Mr. Deal testify to in a minute, we're all aware of the transformation that Berlin has undergone over the past 10, 15, 20 years, where there's been an increase in the population. It's become more of a residential community. You've had businesses in downtown Berlin, all of which we're familiar with, none of which, however, are industrial in nature. And as the Planning Commission found, in order to utilize the Planning Commission's findings and facts with our record, that industrial zoning classification is no longer deemed appropriate, literally in the middle of the town of Berlin, whereas the commercial zoning classification that we requested is appropriate. So with that having been said, Mr. Deal, if you'll stand up, please. I'm just going to ask you a few questions. You are the contract purchaser for the property that's the subject of this hearing, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you attended the Planning Commission meeting with me on July 8th, and you gave testimony at that hearing that's consistent with the findings of fact that the Planning Commission issued that day, correct?
Yes, sir.
You would concur that since the original zoning classification of industrial with regard to this property, the town of Berlin, as has been testified to in many rezonings, has increased over the past 10, 15, 20 years. Would you concur with that? And that there are more than adequate public facilities to accommodate the zoning reclassification that we're requesting. In fact, it's a down zoning, it's not an up zoning from industrial to commercial. There's adequate fire protection, police protection, electric, gas, water, utilities to continue serving this property should the mayor and council approve your rezoning from industrial to commercial. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And the future present and future transportation patterns are consistent with the proposed uses on the rezoning, meaning the vehicular transportation patterns throughout the town of Berlin are more than appropriate to accommodate this change in zoning classification. In fact, it's more appropriate than remaining the industrial zoning classification, which relied heavily, almost predominantly, on active railroad transportation, which no longer exists. Is that correct? Yes, sir. The rezoning is compatible with existing and proposed development in the area, meaning commercial versus industrial. You certainly haven't seen any new industrial uses presented to the town of Berlin, but you see a lot of commercial uses predominantly in the downtown area. Would you concur with that? Yes, sir. And the planning commission agreed that the original M1 light industrial zoning was no longer a compatible use considering the adjacent properties and that the neighboring area had seen significant changes over time. They also found that the proximity to the downtown commercial district made the uses permitted in the proposed B2 zoning more appropriate for that location, which in fact was your testimony before the planning commission, and you would concur with that today, would you not? And because of all those reasons and the testimony you just gave, a rezoning to commercial, a downzoning from industrial would be more appropriate not only for that specific site, but really for all of the Berlin downtown area. Would you concur with that?
Yes, sir.
And if you were a resident living in close proximity to this property, you would prefer to have it zoned commercial than industrial because of the impact an industrial use could have on that site versus the impact anticipated for commercial zoning. Would you agree with that? So not only has there been a change in the neighborhood relative to downtown Berlin, but the existing zoning classification remaining it as industrial is a mistake. It should have been changed from industrial to commercial prior to now, correct?
Yes, sir.
That's going to be our testimony.
Does anyone who's listening have any questions for Mr. Cropper or Mr. Neal? But does anyone on the council have any questions that you'd like to ask? Again, this is former Southern States property that Doug and Suzanne Parks owned for many years and operated in Southern States. To my knowledge, there hasn't been a request to change the zoning up to now because there hasn't been contract for a long, or sale and lease and sale for a long period of time since they retired. So it makes sense that this would be the time. There are homes neighboring on both sides. In fact, there's a new home being built immediately to your west, and of course, the homes have been there for generations immediately to your east. So it is this transition area, just like most downtown Berlin, where we have businesses and homes and a business or two, then eventually this home, and you're right in that transition area. So has anyone submitted any questions?
No, I did post that it's open, but you haven't officially opened the public hearing.
Officially, we're now in the public hearing. I mean, I understand, without all this formal stuff, it's just weird. We're trying to accomplish that in a much unusual setting.
Nothing as of right now, and again, no questions were submitted prior to the meeting. So.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Any comments? All right. Does anyone wish to make a motion regarding the applicant? We've got to close the hearing. Is there any questions still?
No.
Okay. The hearing now is officially closed.
So moved.
Okay. We now entertain any motions regarding the change in zoning.
And again, we need to adopt the planning commission's findings of fact regarding that.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the rezoning of the Parks property, 115 Broadway, from M1 to B2 Shopping District, and include the finding of facts from the planning commission.
So we have a motion to approve the zoning reclassification. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
And all the best to y'all.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing your grand opening.
It's going to be a while.
Anyway, that's the thing. So you got a little work to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
I don't know.
Mayor, we just got a question. I know it's over, but we have a question from resident Jason Walter. Is this at the end of Harrison Avenue included as a contiguous part of this parcel? Is that end of Harrison Avenue included as a contiguous part of this parcel?
I think
Sorry.
David just,
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
yes,
Stumbling.
yes. Okay, sure. All ready? Next, we're on item 4 of the agenda, which is the draft reserve policy. Jeff, you're going to take the lead on this?
Well, we, 2 weeks ago, this was presented. And I've really not had any, I call them pinpointed questions from anyone. Again, this is for discussion and discussion only at this point. So Natalie and I both are seeking your thoughts. Where do you think we should go? Is it a good idea? Where do you want it tweaked? Do you want it simpler? Do you want it as it is? I mean, I'm looking for suggestions.
I'll make a suggestion. I would like to see it something that's easier to follow, that has the GFOA's recommendation of the 3 months of our operating expenditures as a reserve, and to use that as a goal for this policy, and not make it so confusing by breaking it up into so many different categories.
Well,
By the way, I think that's an excellent suggestion.
if I may, I've got these if you all want them again, but 2 weeks ago I gave everyone, I call them the buckets of money, the current and the proposed. So I like to make things simple as well. If we're looking to add to make it real simple, if we're looking at adding just another bucket of money, one more bucket versus what we currently have. And to give everyone a reminder and an example, you know, currently we have the restricted money for slot revenues. We have assigned money, and that's healthcare and community center. We have committed impact fees, and then currently we have an unassigned and expendable. So if I hear you correctly, you're talking about adding another bucket. One was a GFOA recommendation.
Let me make sure that we're talking about the same thing. The $16,000 that's there now, that is expendable reserve, right?
That is unassigned spendable.
Correct.
Okay, so what we're talking about is something in addition to that would meet this, a policy set out with the goal of 3 months, or I think it should be 3 months. The GFOA says 3 months or 16%, I think, Natalie?
3 months recommended.
And whichever one of those is higher, I think we should have, because the reason that I say that is we have an electric utility fund with a little bit more liability, I think. So I think that we should be whichever is higher, either 3 months or the 16%. And that I think the town administrator is correct. It needs to be a separate bucket that requires council action to remove funds from.
And if I understand correctly, we can have both. In other words, because who knows what the budgets will be like in the future. And the 3 months may at one point be bigger than the 16%. Or 16% at some point maybe only 2 months or something.
Right, and I think
Whichever one is greater.
Right, and I think Natalie said at our last meeting that the operating expenditures don't really change a whole lot drastically year over year. So I recommended maybe doing like a 3-year average of whatever those are so that it didn't fluctuate. But if the finance director thinks that we don't have a large fluctuation that would need to accommodate a 3-year average, then I'm open to that. But I want to make sure that if our expenditures drop in a given year, we don't then say, oh, wow, we don't need this money to be so big, when in reality, it's there for a reason. Does that make any sense?
Yes, okay.
Now, just to clarify, you have mentioned electric fund. Electric fund has nothing to do with the general fund and the reserve policy.
It's just.
Yes and no, I mean, go ahead.
Well, go ahead.
So yes and no, because if there was an emergency or something that's outlined in this document that is a draft of $250,000, how do you deem an emergency? So if the electric fund had an infrastructure failure due to a storm, would that not classify for the $250,000 you recommend in this policy?
Then you would authorize a transfer to the electric fund. But the electric fund is not part of the buckets that we're discussing right now.
This is all general fund.
This is only general fund, that's what I'm clarifying.
Yes, but the reserve account or reserve fund, would it be usable for?
General
any-
fund purposes, and if electric fund is in need, you would have to vote to transfer and create a plan to replenish the general fund assigned amount.
But if we had to do that, currently, we really couldn't do that with the 16,000, but we could do that with other monies that could be set aside in this policy, right?
Potentially by votes, yes, not for
Right.
the 16,000. It's not part of a discussion for what we have in front of us as a reserve amounts, as categories. The 16,000 is a leftover after everything else, suspendable balance, basically. That
So-
16,000 could become a 50 or 100,000. It depends of how we close the year. It's what's left.
So then explain to me, if we had our operating expenses pegged at what this 3 months is, it's what, $1.5 million roughly?
Yes.
So if we had $1.5 million in this bucket for a reserve fund, what would you envision it being used for if we needed to use it?
It's a stabilization in case of emergency or something else.
And that could be something catastrophic in any one of our enterprise funds, but it would require council action to be able to unlock that money, correct?
Yes.
Anyone?
We can come back with a revised draft on this
Okay.
in the future.
And I like the idea of simplifying it, very straightforward, so not only the council, but any member of the public can comprehend it is, so that, get a good idea of where it fits in the overall scheme of things.
And I do want to read one question that we received prior to the meeting.
Okay?
Jeff, may I just, before
Yeah,
you
go
get the
ahead.
question, just to clarify, so basically the request is to omit everything else that proposed on the second option and just create one additional reserve stabilization of 3 months. So we would get rid of all that proposed and have a reserve policy just proposing to have a stabilization fund of 3 months and keeping what we have in place as of today. Is it correct? Is I'm understanding it correctly?
I want to make sure.
Was 3 months or I'm not familiar
Well,
with.
we're going to create 3 months or advise G4 way.
You've already got that on here.
Yes, I already have that. That's what I'm trying to understand. Are we going to get rid of everything, just have one block added? And that's what I'm going to present next
I thought we
time?
were talking about adding another one, because I
I think
saw
you've
it
already
in
got it
there.
on here.
Yeah, it's already there. That's why I'm trying to clarify.
So we keep with this current structure.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
And
on
the
there.
only thing
It's all
we're
right
doing
there.
is right here with the 4,000. Should the,
I was looking at that, what it says here, shall be a budget stabilization reserve in the amount sufficient to ensure continuity of town general fund operations for a 3-month period.
Good? Are you good?
Well, I'm just, like I said, I was trying to make clear that we're going to strike everything else. Leave stabilization.
I think rather than being just in the list, I think we need to have, like we do with many ordinances and things, a summary at the top that anybody basically can understand with a basic knowledge of our financial system, including members of the public, that states the general 3-month requirement and so forth. Just a simple statement at the very top, and then you can have the what I call supplemental information. But I think that needs to be at the top and not buried in here. We have to read through and read through. It can still be repeated again. But I think that's exactly what I think, if I'm interpreting right, what Councilmember Kendall was talking about is something that is, what's the bottom line of the effect of these policies? And I don't see where that's any problem. It's just restated, but in a way that's very clear to the public and to all of us, and the folks in the policy. Okay? It shouldn't be very hard.
Okay?
Okay?
So the one question that was submitted prior to the meet, submitted today, it comes from Marie Long, and she asked the question regarding the draft reserve policy. Why is this included in the reserve policy, and what is its purpose? Reserve should be for emergency purposes, especially since we don't have a lot of money right now. Under purpose for reserve policy, page 25, and that's actually the first page of the draft policy. Purpose, and then line C as in Charlie, enable the town to implement innovative opportunities for the betterment of the community. So I take it that she's asking for clarification on that. And the best example that I can give you, it's kind of obvious, I believe, if an opportunity arises for the town to have funds for a needed further growth opportunity, as an example, we could have cash used as leverage. Okay? And a good one that I think of, again, and I think part of the intent of this reserve policy, and it's very vivid in my mind, probably, I want to say a year and a half, 2 years ago, we met, and the question came up at one point, what can we do? We needed some funds for an issue down at Harriman Park, and we beat around the idea of taking money from one of the sign funds. So when we did that, when we discussed that, it was a consensus here that no, we're not going to touch that money. That money is there for that reason. So what this reserve policy does as well, to go back to what was being discussed here, if that extra bucket of money, if you will, is put there, putting, I don't want to say restrictions on it, but in reality that's what we're doing, but this collective body is the one that then would decide whether you take money from that to go fix this or go fix that.
Which is what a reserve fund is for.
Right.
And we have one in place as a good example for that question is the community center, which is an assigned fund, and it's for opportunity or betterment of the community for the future. Those money set aside for specific purpose. It's just an example that we already have in place.
Okay, thank you.
So what would I like to do, Mayor, is, again, we'll put this back on a future agenda, but I would greatly appreciate over the next day or two, if there's any insight, any thoughts, please reach out to Natalie and or myself.
All right, we'll keep right on moving then. Now we're on item 5 on the agenda, which is motion 2020-22. Motion approving reduction of sewer fund debt to the general fund. And Jeff?
We'll pick up again, just as we did with the reserve policy. The conversation 2 weeks ago we had about this, I mean, the facts are at the closed out in 2019 or FY19, the money's owed, if you will, from the sewer fund to the general fund, $3.4 million. Staff has recommended that we write off 1/2 of those funds, and then with the half that remains, to establish a repayment plan over, and Natalie's recommendation, correct me if I'm wrong, was to establish that plan for a 10-year period. So what we need tonight, what I need tonight, is your thoughts. Do we write off none? Do we write off half? Or do we write off at all? Or any percentage in there, a dollar amount, whatever the case may be? I think, again, staff recommendation is 50%, and the logic that we put into that was reducing that debt by half. It makes it a very manageable amount and a very repayable amount, but it also adds credence that we are taking responsibility to pay some of that back. And I do want to clarify as well that the monies that came, they're not a loan. Okay, they're intra-fund transfers that were borrowed. So if we establish that, tell me if I'm wrong, if we establish that as a loan, then we would get into that caveat where we would establish a repayment plan.
And just like you said, for many years, not just a few, many years, the town could not add any additional sewer capacity because we were under limitations because our sewer treatment, the entire system was grossly underserving the community. So we basically could not grow in any way. We couldn't add almost anything. And so that is the reason that, many years ago, we decided to expand and upgrade the wastewater treatment plant and the spray irrigation system because of environmental. We wanted to keep up the environmental standards that we had previously adopted under previous administrations, and that's where the money went. So I remind everyone, we borrowed money, and again, it took about 5 years, but we borrowed money from ourselves to take care of this problem, and quite frankly, I think we have to consider how much money do we want to write off that we owe ourselves, and remembering that in the future mayor and councils will have the ability to in the process where money has to be borrowed, they will also have the freedom and responsibility of determining what the percentage write-off should be. So, does anyone have any suggestions? I remember 2 weeks ago I asked everyone to think about this. And, I think to rephrase it is, should we have any forgiveness at all? Or should we take the staff recommendation of 50%? Should we take, I've heard folks suggest 75% or 100%? But that's what the discussion needs to be held, because hopefully you've all had some time to consider that. But,
I've looked over this an awful lot, and I like the staff recommendations, and everybody else that I've run by us says the same thing. At first, I was thinking we wanted to write off the whole thing, but now I'm thinking that the half of it would be able to replenish that. And we're on this top of this a whole lot better than we were before as far as quarterly meetings and knowing how we're doing. Right now, it looks like we're going to be between 100 and 150 surplus there, based on initial numbers.
It should be 100, hopefully.
Okay, and if we get 100, that would be right in line with what you suggested.
As long as that fund stays on course, when I say stays on course, it is self-supporting, and there looks like there's going to be a surplus. I would be in favor of writing off, but we have to stay on course, and we have to be aware of where we are in that course at all times. You can't come to the end of the year and say we're going to have an overage or whatever. We're going to have to monitor that monthly.
And see, we're getting a quarterly report now that started this past fiscal year that we never got ever in the history of the town, and that we all agree has been most helpful. So I think that addresses that, because each quarter the finance director in an open meeting tells everybody, the public and all of us at the same time, where we stand, how that's doing, so we don't have the after fiscal year surprise that we've had in recent years, and not even know about it until fall. So this way we will be able to see how we're doing as we go, and we'll also be able to then adjust rates if necessary, or postpone improvements if necessary. So does anybody else? I mean, it's basically, I think you're saying Councilman Brunel and Merle, that you agree with the recommendation. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, Mayor, I have have a few more comments,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
Okay.
Council member Kendall had submitted some questions as well, so I'm going to steal your thunder, just read them, okay?
Please do. It'd be easy.
In the handout I just gave you, Councilmember Kendall asked the question, to date, how much money has been borrowed, loaned, or transferred from the general fund to each enterprise fund? The handout that I gave you is page 33 for FY19 year-end PKS financial statement. And so there's your breakdown for, to date, is what's been, I'm going to call it moved from the general fund to the respective other funds.
And we should be due for another holiday financial.
Starting September 11th scheduled.
Okay?
And just to the public, because people
Yeah.
can't read it, the general fund, what the sewer fund owes the general fund, and accumulated over at least 5 years, maybe a little longer, but at least that, is 3.3 million, or almost 3.4 million. What the general fund, what the stormwater fund owes the general fund is $122,323. What the water fund owes the general fund is $373,893, and what is due to the general fund from the water fund is $74,954. So, is there anything else that should be highlighted from the handout?
No, sir. But I do want you mentioned this is over the last 5 years. This actually, based off my research with Natalie, because these numbers, to my knowledge, go all the way back to 2008. Okay?
But basically when we started the upgrade.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Second question from Councilmember Kendall. Please provide an amortization schedule for each enterprise fund to reflect the repayment plan back to the general fund. And I do wish to clarify, these are not loans. They were interfund borrowing transfers. So there is not an amortization schedule until we, I'm looking for the right word.
So it's deemed to named by a loan,
Right.
just like we discussed for the sewer fund.
Can I ask a follow-up? Once we get done evaluating the sewer fund, can we come back in a subsequent meeting and evaluate the transfers that have occurred to the other funds that we talked about and the repayment process for that?
We sure can.
Yeah, I want to jump in on this real quick as well, the sewer fund. We've said it 3 or 4 times, so I won't say it one more time. We finished out the last fiscal year, the numbers went from red to black. That's a good thing. What do we do? What do we do to cause that to happen? We changed the rates. Sewer rates. So what's missing from that equation, what is missing from it, last year we did not have any substantial capital, nor are we planning any substantial capital this year. So I firmly believe that needs to be addressed. How? I mean, I've got ideas, and we can talk about that at a later session, but we're going to have to do something to establish a quasi-capital fund to start again putting money away for the sewer fund. And that's going to have to happen. Or we're going to be in a situation with this new bucket where you're going to be tapping into that to make things happen, should it even be done.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, we hope that with what is being forgiven or not being paid back,
That's right.
that would allow some relief to actually initiate putting some funds
Agreed.
away just for that purpose.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, as a follow-up to that, if we begin down the line of trying to repay the 1.7 mil, which is the remaining portion of the debt that we wouldn't write off, or the transfer, I should say, that we wouldn't write off, and then begin treating that as a loan, that's $170,000 a year if we adopt the 10-year repayment plan.
And we've got budgeted for the current FY, we'll take a little over $100,000.
Right, if the fund closes in the
Right.
positive.
Right, but that's if it closes in the positive, it still wouldn't retain any any money in that fund, right? So it would be in essence, starting the year back at zero. But then if we come to the recommendation of adopting a capital improvement or a budget year that needs capital improvements on top of the repayment, I don't know if that's possible without,
Well, it's inevitable.
I understand, that's what I'm getting at, is that,
That's why I think that we have to make a decision, doesn't have to be this evening, but make a decision soon. What is realistically feasible, because the expenses are not going to go away. We can't go into hibernation, as the town did for a generation, and then expect things not to go up. I think what we have to do is find a reasonable balance between what do we want to pay back to ourselves, to our general fund, and what do we still need to build up in reserves to allow for the wastewater treatment plant to either expand or be upgraded. Both are going to happen inevitably.
and that's what I'm getting at, is that I don't know if the fund can handle realistically $170,000 a year debt repayment to the general fund, in addition to the capital needs that are truly needed.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I do.
That repayment schedule has not been established. It has been talked about, but we haven't agreed on that $100,000 over 10 years. And if it's something else we need to look at with the repayment schedule, that's when we'll do it. But we're not there yet.
I'm really hoping that sooner than later, we're going to get this report from Gene Holloway, and that will be part and parcel of the whole thing. It may be 15 years.
It
We need to see what that study.
And that's something we originally thought we were going to get in the spring.
It might not be
Because of COVID-19, it's been postponed and postponed.
I actually spoke to her last week,
might
and
not
she
be
said
10
she's
years.
very behind on the schedule because of the COVID. She's not allowed to travel a lot. So what the plan is, she's working to prepare a preliminary report to evaluate fiscal 20 and present something in front of you as a draft or preliminary numbers. And then as we bypass the fiscal 21, insert a more certain numbers and then to present an actual proposal.
And I just want to remind everyone, because it's not right in front of you now, but it's coming soon enough. We're going to have to make additional investments. You know, it's kind of like, okay, are we going to repay ourselves and make that the priority, or are we going to have the funds available to invest in the water, particularly wastewater facilities, to allow us to meet all the environmental and also the capacity standards that are required? What's more important? And that's why I think, you need to reflect on this some more, maybe think about it, investigate it, because quite frankly, if it's something that can't be met, then this standard, if it's not realistic, would have to be changed later anyway. So let's at least try to do something that meets both obligations. I keep reminding you, we owe the money between one fund and the other fund. That's why we have always had the capacity to support these utility funds through trials and tribulations. And remember, it was put off for a couple of decades. It wouldn't have cost anywhere near as much if it had been done in steps, which is the plan now. As capacity needs increase and environmental standards increase, we do it incrementally, not just once every 20, 30 years. And that's what I'm saying. I think that's going to be something on your plate within the next year or so. Maybe a year, 2 years, tops.
And it's not only going to be in the wastewater fund, I see it in the general fund. There's no doubt about it, there's a lot of improvements need to get made, and we're breaking even right now, but we're not putting any money away. Am I on the right page?
Well, that's the purpose of reserve policy, is to go to move forward and have something as a capacity to look into, but yes.
Well, Councilmember Kendall's third question goes hand in hand with what you're saying, I believe. He asked, what is your recommendation for preventing borrowing from the general fund in the future? So I asked the question, how do we get there to begin with? And I think that was just discussed. We had significant growth. This is my opinion, Mayor. If I'm wrong, please stop me. A number of years ago, the engineering firm URS established the fees, and so there was some magical number that you have to sell X EDUs. And my professional opinion, I think that we got up and went before it started. So I think that was kind of
In
like
other words, the projections were way too optimistic.
Yes.
For the return that we got.
yes.
Because otherwise, we would have had to set the fees higher at the time. Would have been almost routine.
That's right.
But you know, that's hindsight. And all I'm saying is that we need to have, based on that experience, and the fact that, do we want to go into complete close down? Do we just want to shut this town down for the next many years so that we can pay back the debt to ourselves? Or do we want to find something more reasonable way to address the overall responsibilities we have? Certainly, we have a responsibility to replenish the general fund reserves.
Yep.
But that's not the only obligation we have. And those reserves are there for when things go bump in the night or can't be predicted. And if anybody's got a guaranteed way that nothing ever will happen, unanticipated, that doesn't work out, then, you know, wonderful to you. But I don't think you're going to be living in this world when that happens. That's just not the nature of life. So what we need to do, we either have the situation and we have some choices, and I would encourage you to think about what we can do in the immediate future and then what we should do in the long term. And this, again, if you all agree tonight, fine. If you don't, I encourage you to think about it.
Now, I think that some checks and balances are in place. However, like we've talked about the quarterly reports and the quarterly analysis, we have the presentation from the auditors. Is there a way that we could, after all the quarterly reports, to have an end-of-year analysis that says, hey, look, this fund was in the red for X amount, and these are the reasons why. And the corrective action that we recommended in the quarters that we noticed this, maybe didn't work out, but moving forward, this is what we need to look at. Can we have a more firm, presentation about that?
Quarterly? Together annually, or?
I think that the quarterly reports address any deficits that may be are occurring throughout the budget process, or throughout the fiscal year after the budget has been adopted. But before, these transfers take place at the end of the fiscal year, am I correct?
Yes,
Correct.
last day.
So at that time, we have a full snapshot of what took place over the previous fiscal year.
Correct.
I think we need a clear perspective before we move forward with the next fiscal year's budget to say, these are the measures you need to put in place so that we don't recreate what just happened.
I think that's too late.
I would agree, but I mean, at the absolute latest,
I think if we get to the end of the year and we don't know how much we're gonna be over or under, it's too late. That's the information we need while we're operating. And during that operating time, we need to change what we do. Now, I'm not the one, because I'm not I'm gonna say project director, but you know what I'm talking about. To make those determinations, but those determinations need to be made during the year. So we don't get to the end of the year and have a lot of overspending. That is too late. And it's just too late.
and I agree with you, but what I'm looking at is like the history that's taken place. So this occurred once before with the electric fund, not as large of a transfer that we had to evaluate. And then now we're looking at $3.4 million. I just really want to make sure that it's like a wall that's right in front of us that you can't not see it. So if we missed it by any chance during the quarterly reports, it's then there as a presentation to the mayor and council.
Why don't we, I mean, I want to make a suggestion, and tell me whatever. Why don't we have the quarterly reports that you're getting now, and at the end of the third quarter, to have a more formal, detailed, I call it script, and go through the budget in detail at the end of the third quarter.
I think that would be helpful.
I think so.
I would submit that along with the quarterly
Yes.
reports, we have, especially if it's gonna, if we project ending in the red, we have your plan of what we're gonna do to try to stay on task. So it's gonna be, in addition to a quarterly report, we should be getting action steps or an action plan to address any deficiency that report is pointing out.
And I agree with it, but I think another way of expressing that is that, again, each quarter, I don't think we should wait until the third, but just so we can see if the trends are developing. Because if there's an adjustment that needs to be made, you can't say, well, we'll just shut down such and such department, or we'll cut back on electricity, or we'll tell people they can't use the restrooms. I mean, that's just not reasonable. But what we can do is say, okay, if the expenses are greater, the operating expenses, which got us to this, are greater than what was budgeted, then we can adjust the fees. It's not, this is something that property taxes has nothing to do with, but the fees for each department are supposed to be self-supporting. And it was the sewer fund that wasn't self-supporting. We didn't know about it for years, and when we did, we paid a big price. But I think if we have that, we can see a trend, and if that is part of that quarterly report, then we can address this before, because we can change fees. We don't have to wait for the whole budget process. If there's a good reason and a verifiable reason to adjust those fees. If we know this, we certainly raise the sewer fees at least 5 years ago. So now
When we reset the rates last time, we were based on, okay, this is what it cost to do it last year and the year before, so we should raise it to this number, so hopefully we break even, and I think we accomplished that in wastewater department.
And what we
Now we look forward to, how are we gonna pay for this expansion? The costs are gonna go up, so obviously the rates are gonna have to go up, so they don't go down.
And I do want to offer, I believe it was Councilmember Purnell, following the last meeting, we had an impromptu discussion outside, and we got talking about EDUs. And I want everyone to understand that EDUs, the monies from EDUs can be utilized within the sewer and water funds for both capital and debt reduction. It's in the code.
But not to balance the operational budget.
Not to balance the operational budget, no. Just, I want to bring it up. So I hear quarterly and more proactive tactics or plan in place for the quarterly reports. So I would suggest to do maybe 6 months and 6 months after. The first quarter of the budget year is pretty much going to be too early to predict anything for the rest of the 3 quarters, because revenues are not coming like general fund grants or real estate taxes. They're not coming in the first quarter, but we have to operate. So maybe first 6 months with the biannual reports to look at, and I'm gonna try and see if PPS can provide me with the fixed asset depreciation schedule to be calculated into it to see where we stand for each fund. This is one thing, if you're all okay with that. And the second, Councilman.
Just to say, I'm not okay with that.
Okay.
Yes, we may need additional information, but I think at least quarterly.
Oh, no, we're not canceling the quarterly, we're
Okay.
still gonna get the quarterly
Good.
reports,
Okay.
just like as always. I am saying for biannually to have more detailed proposed action if something needs to be corrected, budget transfers or adjustments.
So you are suggesting that in addition to the quarterly reports,
To have the
there is
biannual,
a 6-month,
yes.
And I'm gonna,
I could go along with that.
and I'm going on record at the end of each quarter to give you Natalie and I have discussed this now for about a year. To give, on the quarterly reports, her, as the finance director for the town of Berlin, her perspective on where we're at. Is there something that needs to be tweaked? Are we balanced? Are we off track? So I still think that needs to happen on a minimum of a quarter.
Absolutely, I agree.
And a little correction to the comment was made that before we've forgiven electric. Electric fund was an actual debt as a loan carried by electric fund, borrowed from the third party, not an interfund transfer. That was transferred or forgiven due to the rate study that was about 12 years ago. So that's a little different.
Now, can I ask for clarification? So you're saying Q1, you're not anticipating any action steps that would have to be presented for Q1. You're saying Q2 would require or could possibly need action steps. And then at the end of the fiscal year, you would provide those again.
Right.
But I think that if we're going to do it, Q2 and Q3 need to possibly have action steps in there, because if you notice a corrected issue halfway through, I'd want some follow-up before we hit the end of the year. So I would like to see that for Q2 and Q3, and then have a snapshot of how we actually perform.
I will do whatever you would like me to
By
do.
having
It's perfectly
both quarters, it
fine.
also allows us to take that in consideration in the budget we are adopting. You know, we adopted it at the end, but we take, what, it takes 3 months to do the budget process. So that third quarter would, the second and third quarter would be very helpful to that process. We can see it coming, because what's happened in the past, not this year, previous years, we didn't know about the deficit until after the year was over. It's too late to do anything about it. So what I'm saying, I think I agree. The second and third quarter report related to what we're talking about here, I think are critical to being able to make adjustments, either currently, for those things that need to be done, and in the budget that's being prepared for the next year.
Okay, we'll do quarterly.
Thank you.
And, you know, first quarter might not be meaningful, but at least we can get educated about it. Okay.
So let's go back now to we do have a motion drafted for this evening for the debt reduction. And that motion, we kind of left blank. When I say blank, I'll read it to everyone here. But a motion of the mayor and council of the town of Berlin reducing the $3.4 million debt owed from the sewer fund to the general fund by blank %. So we're looking for a percent or in the amount of X dollars.
I like what you all proposed, 50%, and that worked out to. I'd like to make a motion to adopt the motion of the mayor and council 2020-22 and fill that blank in with 50%. And what is that actual number?
Well, it's an and, it's an or, so you don't have to.
Okay,
Well, it's roughly 1.7.
then you put that in there. Whatever 50% of what it is.
Oh, you got me straight.
You got it.
So,
Half of 3383561.
Is what?
Do it.
Council's got to write it on the resolution, so.
right, so, and again, is the amount that we're talking in the resolution, the total amount that's remaining after the write-off?
Correct.
Okay, so that's the 1.7 million that was rounded in round figures.
Rounded.
That would go in the second one.
Yeah,
It's
the
50.
exact amount is $1,600,000. $691,780.50.
She said percentage. Thanks, Council.
That's the
50% is,
Yes.
50% is the percentage of the debt that we're, council.
Do you want me to repeat it?
Yes. To rate on.
1,691,780.50.
50.
That'll work.
Can we have one, I would like to see if we could entertain one change, which is what we talked about on page 2, recommendation C, establish an attainable 10-year repayment schedule. I think that it would be wise, I think Dee may have said it, or Troy, that we take a look at the term of that repayment when we get the report from Dean Holloway.
You could enter a range from 10 to 15 or 10 to 20. It's all on our repayment. It's not like we're
Yeah.
defaulting a year or in the bank on a foreclosure. So you can put range, you don't have to have any.
I think the idea of a range for everybody and anticipate unexpected as well as gives everybody a feel for where we are at any moment in time. Because I think once we get a feel for where we are at any moment in time, we won't have that to repeat. But it's just, I think this keeps everybody informed. Mayor and council, certain finance will be, and the public where we are at any time of the year. Okay?
We have a motion there, but we need to.
Right? So are we all agreed on what the motion is? Okay, we stated correctly now.
I can say it again.
Yeah, it's just, I think for the record,
No problem.
just for the record, so everybody's clear, both here and tuning in.
Okay. Motion 2020-22, motion of Mayor and Council of the Town of Berlin reducing the $3,383,561 debt owed from the sewer fund to the general fund by 50%, or in the amount of
$1,691,780.50.
Thank you.
Okay? All right, that is the motion. Is there any questions on the motion? Otherwise, I entertain.
Would you like to add it with the
Yeah, and
rate
we're going
schedule range from 10 to 15?
We're going to, once the Dean Holloway study is completed, we know exactly where we're going as far as the term and the repayment terms of that debt back to the general fund.
So you want to wait for a year? to
No, I
start
don't want
that?
to wait at all. We're going to adopt
Because
it
the
now.
study is not going to
but
come
know
out
that we're
for a
going
year.
to look at that in the future to determine what is appropriate.
So let's go with the 10 years for right now, and then revisit
No,
the
let's
term,
go from 10 to 20 years.
It could be, 10 to 20 years is what it's going to work
a
out.
range of 10 to 20, okay.
Well, as we get more information, we can determine.
We don't know today. If it's $100,000, it's going to be 17 years,
Right.
18 years. It could be-
Why don't we
if it's
just
100
pass the motion as it was and leave that out?
That's right.
Revisit it when we get the study from Gene Hall.
If that's your suggestion, that's fine.
Okay, so we're not going to
Throw it
make
into that motion.
So let me just.
You're going to make the motion, Mayor.
Why don't you read the motion as you just explained it, so there can't be any, I don't want anybody saying, well, that's not what I intended.
Okay, it would be a motion of the mayor and council of the town of Berlin reducing the $3,383,561 debt owed from the sewer fund to the general fund by 50%, or in the amount of whatever that half number was. Period.
And just leave it at that? All right, is everyone clear what's being proposed? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, let the record show with unanimous vote. And I appreciate everybody's time, because I realize it's taking a lot of time.
And I want to tell everyone that with Natalie here, I appreciate her time. I know it's her job, but she put a lot of time and a lot of effort into both this draft reserve policy and what we just. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we'll move on to departmental reports.
Mayor, I've got, I'll get the, I'll call it the quick stuff out of the way. I think everyone's well aware of the storm that we had this past Tuesday. I think one of the council members texted me or emailed me and said, is it really bad out there? Well, I'm not going to define bad because what might be bad in your yard might not be bad in your yard. So I think overall, we escaped pretty well. I'm not taking away from the trees that went down and some damage that folks may have experienced, but I just want to share a couple of statistics. On Tuesday, the Tuesday storm, the electric utility, the main circuit that was affected was 220, and the average outage lasted about 46 minutes. I will share with you that our neighbors to the north, in North Sussex County and North Kent County and southern Newcastle County, Delaware, as of today, they still have hundreds of folks without electricity. We did send an electric crew out on Wednesday. They went to Dover. They came back on Friday. So I really appreciate the work that they did.
Now, what was the outages there when they started?
When they started, it was in excess of 2,000.
And if I could just note, that's actually part of our mutual aid agreement through AMP, American Municipal Power.
Yeah, great. That's a great.
And some of the pictures that Alan Parkinson brought back, it's absolutely incredible. I mean, telephone poles not only snapped off, but gone. So they had quite a storm up north of Dover and north. So I wanted to share that. Want to talk real quick, and I'll entertain any questions. I think everyone's aware that we have 2 water towers. The water tower out on 346 out by the dog food plant, we took that offline a couple weeks ago. We're back feeding from the tank on Franklin. We had issues with pressure, so we brought the tank on 346 back up. Jamie and crew spent some time out there, believe it was some valve issues that was causing the problem. Felt pretty comfortable. It went offline, the one on 346 on Thursday. Everything seemed fine on Thursday, everything seemed fine on Friday. So on Saturday, and then yesterday we had some hiccups. So we put both towers back online. There's some valve issues again that Jamie believes that he's got to get involved with before we try this again.
And Jeff, would you explain why the work's being done?
Yes.
Because most people don't know why the tower has to be.
The tower on 346 is due for its, I call it its shelf life maintenance. It's interior maintenance as well as a repainting on the outside. So that's what we're hoping to get accomplished. As of today, being that tank is back online, they are going to proceed with the external maintenance on the tank. And then as soon as we can figure this valving issue out, and then we'll go back offline, feed from one, and take care of the inside.
Okay, we'll keep the public informed on our website and announcements and stuff.
That is correct.
Okay.
Okay. So that was a biggie. And then the last thing that I have to talk about are where are we on streets, and I'm looking for your support and help on going forward a bit. I sent everyone an email Friday afternoon, I want to say around 3 o'clock. I spelled out where I'm at on something, and I'll just cut to the chase. When we sat, I don't know, 6 months ago, 5-6 months ago, and discussed potential street project, we had taken the DBF street study, the engineer study, and went through and picked out roughly a dozen streets. And the cost factor on that was about a little over $500,000. We went out for bid. We had 3 bids come in. 1 bid came in roughly $560,000. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mary. 1 came in roughly $520,000, and then we had 1 come in at $348,000. That was ultimately the contractor that we awarded the bid to. So to take the skepticism out of folks' minds real quick, before we awarded that bid, we were informed that they had done work for the city of Easton, town of Delmar, and the town of Fruitland. I personally made a trip to Easton, and obviously I made a trip to Delmar. But then I reached out to Mike Gibbons, who used to be here as the public works director in Fruitland. All 3 entities gave thumbs up, said they did good work. I had no idea how they can do it so much different in price, but they already seen the work out here that we've done at this point. So that said and done, I sat down with the superintendent of the project, with Jamie and with DBF, and asked what it would cost to do some additional streets and some additional concrete work. So I want everyone aware of something that I consider monumental that needs to be clear. The development of Walnut Hill, it's been, for the duration that I've been employed here, that street and those sidewalks out there were not town property. I can tell you that we learned about a month ago that they are, in fact, they were deeded to the town. I asked any of you before tomorrow, assuming you give me the thumbs up, to take a ride out there. You've got elevation changes in those sidewalks of anywhere between 3 and 4 inches. I'm well aware of some folks being hurt out there. I did ask the current, well, I went out and actually got 3 bids on those sidewalks, just for the sidewalks. One company came in at just over $60,000, one over $50,000, and then the current streets guys that we have here, which they do concrete as well, they came in just around $31,000. It's a huge safety issue out there. It needs to be done.
And could you explain why the sidewalks are so elevated in certain
Yes,
spots?
if you go into Walnut Hill, it basically is one road in and it has a loop with a green area in the middle. So you have a curbing, you have, I'm gonna say 28 to 36 inches of grass. Inside that grass median are a number of trees. So those trees have caused that sidewalk, not all of it, but a good portion of it, to change elevations. The same issue you have anywhere in town where there's a tree. So the homeowners association had concerns if we went out there with those trees. So what we did, in fact, we reached out to Worcester County Environmental Services and got their read on how this should be treated with those trees. So you're not going to go in and try to kill them. That's not the intent at any time, but to get clear direction on what's the recommended, where do you cut roots and where you don't cut roots. So that's been explained in detail with this contractor. Also enlisted the help of both our arborists, our town arborists, to be present when this work happens out there as well, to keep an eye on this group. So that needs to be done. And what I want to share, if I overload you, please stop me. Okay? What's been done, completed, Harrison Avenue, Tingle, Upshur Middle, and Buckingham, Cape Circle, Burley Street East, Flower Street North. When I say north, I'm talking up near East Railroad, Flower going out toward Ocean's East, all the way out to what I learned from you, the big bridge, and then when you get further out where the town picks up again, all the way out to the Sea Hawk Road. So that's been completed. Shao has been completed and Bottle Branch has been completed. They're done. So what I'm hoping for your approval on, and it still keeps us within budget, Decatur Street extended, Mill Road, which is off Decatur Street extended, is very similar to Cape Circle, which we did. It was built at the same time and pretty much the same issue. Not quite as bad as what Cape was, but it is indeed. Branch Street, Hudson Street, Gray Street, and that's the extent of the street. So the simplest I can make this to everyone in this room, we're getting $2 worth of work done for $1, if you compare that to the other bids. So,
You didn't say Flower Street, the rest of Flower Street?
yeah, I'm sorry, Flower Street, when you come back to Henry Park, it's about 400 feet in front of Henry Park that's going to be done.
It's up to the Stormwater Bridge. The Stormwater.
Yes.
I call it bridge.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a lot. I mean, right now, we're roughly a little over 3 miles of streets with all those. That's significant. And again, I'm asking you all to please find the time. I'll pick you up. I'll buy you a drink. But let's ride around town and see what's been done. It's absolutely, I think, a wonderful thing that's been done.
Jeff, I'm going to summarize the numbers.
Yes.
As to what we originally budgeted and is in our budget for street improvements and upgrades this year is $550,000. Our initial contract was, I had 349, this is 348, but anyway, substantially less. What is being done here, the additional work totals about about $150,000, give or take a few dollars. So that means the total amount of expense, if you approve this additional work to be done, would be $500,400, give or take a few, out of it, and we still remain in the budget for emergencies and things that go bump in the night. Still will be $40,000 remaining in the budget. So all the things that Jeff has told us tonight, we'd like to authorize the contractor when he comes back to work next Monday in Berlin, finish up the streets that were on the original list, but also finish up the streets that you see under change order work. And that's what the approval that's being asked tonight. So we're getting, I'd say, about 40% more streets work done than we originally had hoped for, planned for, plus this significant sidewalk improvements, Walnut Hill, Commerce Street, and some other places. That's what's before you.
If Jeff has shared all that with me, I'm 100% in agreement.
I agree too.
I agree. Somebody make the motion.
I'll make the motion that we go ahead and we continue on with the list that he just gave us. I think it's a heck of an idea. I said this before about him incorporating that extra linear per foot pricing, and that the contractor agreed to that. And as I said, I wish I'd thought of that myself instead of you. But that was that's a home run for sure. You can't beat it. You just can't beat it.
So you make the motion?
Yes, I do.
That we approve the additional street work and sidewalk work
Yes,
as
sir.
proposed by the town administrator
Yes, sir.
for this summer.
Correct.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, let the record show that motion passed unanimously.
Anything, Natalie?
No, I'm good, thank you. Just, we're gonna do a virtual audit this year, so it's a lot of communicating through the emails, sending through the secure files, and it's gonna start September 11th.
Wow, thank you.
Kelsey, do you have anything?
No, thank you.
Mary?
Just some general election-related information, because I've gotten quite a few questions. Unless something dramatic changes with the pandemic one way or the other, what our plan is to have social distancing, masks required. We are strongly encouraging people to vote absentee. It's very simple to do. That process opens on September 4th. They just can reach out to me any number of ways. All the information is on our website. That's about it.
So we're having both absentee balloting through the mail and election poll voting at the place for districts 3 and 4 at the police station and districts 1 and 2 at the Buckingham
Correct.
Church Hall.
Yes, yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure people know they have.
Yes,
either
they have
choice.
the option, in-person voting as they always have, or they can do absentee voting,
And that's our plan.
it counts just as much as an in-person ballot.
And that plan is our plan, and is what we're organized to do. The only thing that would possibly change it if the governor sends out orders, which I don't anticipate, because basically this is the same plan that is for the state of Maryland.
Yes, essentially.
Right? Any questions for Mary?
And Mary has, just as an FYI, with the absentee ballots, she's been exploring measures to prevent counterfeiting, if you will, of the ballot, duplicating those ballots, so that's being done. And also, I think we're still on track for this, at the actual polling stations, what am I looking for, the call guard,
Sneeze guard,
sneeze guard, thank you.
plexiglass shield.
Okay.
Will be placed with
Yes.
every station? Okay. Very good.
Can you review the mechanisms for requesting an absentee ballot?
There will be a form on the website starting right around September 3rd. Now, other than that, they can contact me directly by phone or email or in person. There's an application form that needs to be completed first. Once that's turned into me and I verified their status as a registered voter in their district and all that information, then I send them a actual ballot.
I could,
And I guess with the absentee ballots, are they due on election day, or are they due before? How do we?
The ballots will be accepted up until close of polls on election day.
Okay, and so they will be counted that night?
Right,
that evening.
correct.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you. Okay, I think we've had a very productive meeting, so I don't have any comments. Is there any of you all have any comments you wish to make? Bring that up?
I just have one thing. The weeds are back in the sidewalks. Yeah.
Got it?
Yeah, and it's been that kind of year where they seem to
They come back
fly.
fast, yeah.
Yeah. So if you can get our public works folks and their summer helpers, just do the very best they can to get.
I'd just like to express what a great paving job. I've been to all the streets, I've seen the guys working, and they've done a great job. It really looks good, it's a nice improvement.
Yep.
You can't even get a car on the road.
Right?
Can you get a car on the road?
Can't hear the car.
We can hear the road now.
Yeah.
It's like Especially Harrison Avenue.
When I drive by your house, I'll blow the horn.
Yeah. It's like,
I like that.
that's the way it sounds.
Does anyone else have any comments or something?
No, sir.
For the council? All right,
Correct?
do you have any questions or requests?
Move to adjourn.
So moved. So moved, so we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Mr. Gavin, while you're out.
So will it stop?
I want to